Hi everyone, it's Teresa from Sewing Together, and this is just a quick video of going to go through the supplies that you need for our next sew along, which is called Celestial Beauty. So this is our Celestial Beauty block. That's it there. And this is the pack that we're using from Epiflex. So it is English Paper Pieced Star. But it is actually appliqued to a background block. So it's a little bit different from the previous sew along that we did, which was just English paper piecing. So we're combining English paper piecing with very, very simple applique that's already prepared, because we actually use the edges of the template to turn our applique seam allowance under, and it's super simple to applique to your background. So that's our little kit. So it's called Celestial Beauty, and there's enough Epiflex templates in here to make about 9 blocks without removing any templates. So that's going to make life easier for us. With regards to the other supplies that we're going to need, obviously we're going to need fabric. Now, one of the wonderful things about Epiflex templates is that we can make our quilt whatever size we want. So it's the block that we're using is 7.5 inches finished, so it sits perfectly on a 10-inch square. So I'm going to use a 10-inch pre-cut pack. Moda call these layer cakes, but the rest of us call them just a 10-inch stacker or similar. So there's 42 squares of fabric in here. So I'm going to make my quilt 5 blocks by 5 blocks. So I'm going to set aside 25 of these for my background, and I'm going to use the remainder for my star points. So 25 of them will be the background squares. Then the remainder I will use for my star points. And then for where I've got the mustard colour on this one, I'm actually going to use a white Kona fabric. So I've got that there. So that's my white. So that's all I'm going to need fabric wise. When we get to the 4th week of our sew along, I am going to talk to you about border options, and if you want to put sashing, and if you want to do quilts as you go. So I'm going to talk to you about that later, but primarily we're going to focus on the blocks for the first 3 weeks, and then we'll give you some options later on. You don't have to use a 10-inch stacker pack. You can certainly raid your scrap basket. You do only need very small pieces, and it looks great as a scrappy quilt. I'm a controlled scrappy kind of person, so that's why I really like the concept of having the coordinated fabrics, because I know that I don't have to think about whether they're all going to work together or not. It's portable, it's easy, I can just pop it all in the box, I can pick it up and put it down, and I not have to think about auditioning fabrics, whether they're right or wrong. I can just get on with getting it stitching. So the other things that you're going to need, apart from your Epiflex pack and your fabrics, is of course you are going to need to be able to cut out your fabric pieces. So you can use a rotary cutter and mat and maybe a little ruler, or you can just simply use a pair of scissors. For the Epiflex templates, I definitely recommend glue basting. You can thread baste them. For me, glue based, a couple of little tiny dots of glue just to hold them in place is just so super simple. I'll go through that in step 1 if you're not familiar with it. But a glue pen and refills. You will need some needles to sew it together. So my favourites are a size 10 straw needle. They're fine, but they're not too fine. If you prefer a really fine needle, you can go to a size 11. I find that I bend them and break them, so they're a little bit too fine for me. I'm a big fan of the size 10. You can go back to a size 9. The finer your thread, the finer your needle, the finer your stitches and more invisible your stitches will be. So I definitely suggest you try around about a size 10 needle and a very fine thread. Some people prefer a shorter length needle, like a quilting length needle. So they're a little tiny short needle. And if that's what works for you, that's perfectly okay, because this is your project and you have to work on what's best for you. I find a short quilting style needle is way too short for me, so I stick with the straw needles. And then of course we're going to need some thread. So my favourite thread for English paper piecing is Daco Bob. It's an 80 weight thread, so it's very fine, and we don't need to match exactly, so I will probably just use a pale grey, so probably something in the neutrals pack. So these are 6 bobbins in there, and it's a neutrals pack: antique white, dove grey, brown grey, taupe, dark grey and dark tan. So you've got some variety of threads in there, and then they also come in 2 other packs as well. So that's Daco Bob, and it's an 80 weight thread. I know lots of you also really like Invisifil. So it is also, Invisifil I think is 100 weight thread. And we have those in packs as well. So I know that lots and lots of people love Invisifil, and it's great too. My other favorite thread that I like to use is called Bottom Line thread, and it's from Superior Threads, so it's a great thread as well. So all my three favorite threads are very fine threads. I know that there are lots of people who are a big fan of Aurifil. So if you are using Aurifil, go for a finer thread than a 50 weight. So if there's a 60 or an 80 weight, try and head for those. So that fine thread will blend into your fabrics and your stitches won't be as obvious. So that's about all that we need to get started. So just to give you a little rundown. So our first video and our first week of our sew along, we are going to be preparing our pieces. Our second week, we are going to be stitching our centers together, so our stars and our circular outside pieces together. Week 3, we are going to be appliquing them to our backgrounds. And then I'm going to give you a little bit of a break to get some blocks made. And week 4, or video 4, I will be back and I will talk to you about different ways to add borders and sashing, and if you want to make more blocks or different layout options for you, and even talk to you about if you wanted to do Quilt As You Go. So it's a great Quilt As You Go project. So that's about all from me now. If you want a full rundown of our supplies, it will be available on sewingtogether.com.au, and you can find all the supplies that you're going to need. And I look forward to you joining us for this sew along. We'll see you soon. Bye.